Hi, friends. Welcome to the Content Marketing Lounge podcast. My name is Nathan Collier. I'm the founder and admin of the Content Marketing Lounge, which is a 2,600 member strong community of content marketers, small business owners, freelancers, consultants, solopreneurs, side hustlers, people who are in the world of content marketing and doing the work every single day. We're a Facebook group, so if you're not yet a member, come join us. You can find a link to the group at contentmarketinglounge.com. Just look in the upper menu there, and you'll find a link to the group. Today, I'm titling this episode "The Long Game," and I like this idea, and I think too many of you are being sold a story, a narrative that's dangerous. And I want to tell you sort of how I approached this thing and how my business came from nothing to where it is today. Because I have one of these success stories, right, that you hear. But I also want to tell you the real story. Like, I want to tell you how it really goes, or how it has really gone for me, as opposed to maybe some of the stories that you've heard from others. So today is, I'm recording this on September 25th, 2017. And it's the 2-year anniversary. So 2 years ago today, I left my corporate job and struck out on my own. I was working in-house at this big corporate company. It was a company that made software for automotive dealerships. So if you've ever bought a car, especially a car in the US or Canada, you go into the dealership and you meet the salesperson, and they at some point type your information, your phone number and your name, your address and all that into a computer. And if you did that in the US and Canada, there's a 40% chance that they were typing into software made by the company I was working for. And it was a good job. Like, I'm not going to say it was a bad job. There's a lot of hate out there about sort of corporate gigs and 9-to-5 jobs, but for me, it really was a place for me to learn and grow. And I needed that. Like, I needed that experience, because I was coming out of, I had an English degree, right? So what can you do with an English degree besides, teaching? Not a whole lot, not directly anyway. And so I had to learn some of the art and practice of business and marketing and sales and all that kind of stuff. And I was lucky enough to work alongside some really fabulous people there at the job. But so that was 2015. 2 years prior to that, so 2013, I had finished a master's degree and I had a student loan payment that was going to start coming due. In the US, if you take out student loans to go to college, whenever you graduate, at the 6 months after the date that you graduate is when you have to start paying those loans back. And so that day was coming up on the calendar for me. I finished my master's in the summer of 2013, and I knew that the payments were going to start in January of 2014. So in that space there between the summer of 2013 and January of 2014, I started sort of working through, like, how am I going to pay the extra $350 a month to make this payment. And I could have gone after a new job, but I had some things going on in my day job that I was really interested in and wanted to kind of see finished. And so I decided not to go find a new job. And instead, I looked at freelancing. And freelancing is an interesting thing, right? There's different kinds of businesses that you can start, right? You can start a business where you're like selling products, whether that's an online product or a physical product. There's also businesses that are service-based, and freelancing is one of those, right? And I was coming out of the world of content marketing. And so for me, in content marketing is a wonderful, wonderful field to be a freelancer, because sometimes you have freelancers that are specialists in one thing. Like, say you're a freelancer and you specialize in building websites, right? So those are individual projects, right? You get on, you get a client, and then you build their website, and then it's done. And then you have to go find another client to work for a while. And those types of freelance businesses, you have to constantly be doing prospecting in order to keep the business just viable, right? Well, in the world of content marketing, it's a little different, because most of the time when I land a content marketing client, they don't just want one piece. They want they need somebody to be their blog writer, right? And they're going to publish one blog per week or one per month or whatever it is. And on top of that, they're going to have to do a content upgrade for every single piece, and they want to do a white paper every quarter. And it's like there's this continuous flow of content that needs to be created to keep the engine running, and that's what I'm good at. And so for me, it was really an ideal choice to pick freelancing as a side hustle, because I could do it on my own time. I could do it in the evenings. I could work for people all over the world. I didn't have to find somebody locally. And it didn't have to interfere with what I was doing in my day job at all. So that's the direction I went. And it took me a couple of months to land a client, but I eventually did. And my very first job was like this $5 little thing that I did as a test project for a client. He wanted me to write job descriptions. So those things you see on like monster.com or indeed.com that just describe a job. He was recruiting accounting professionals, and he was going after really high level people, but his writing and grammar were atrocious. So, and people had told him that they almost didn't apply to his job because the job listing was so badly written. So he knew it was a problem. So he needed a writer, and here I come. And for me, that's nothing, right? For me, like just cleaning up a job listing is a very simple project. So I did literally dozens of those for him. And eventually, as I worked with him, he came to me and he said, I've always wanted to do a newsletter. I have this big email list and I never email them. Do you think you could help me with that? And so that became my first sort of regular month by month project. And that earned me the $300 I needed per month to do that for him. So I didn't have to land any other clients, right, to hit my numbers. So, but business being what it is, and here's a secret, is that your business is either growing or it's dying. It's either gaining more opportunities or it is fizzling out. That has been my experience. That it's not a straight line kind of thing. But the more you work as a freelancer, the more referrals you get, the more people hear about your work. It just sort of starts to take on a life of its own, and that's a good thing. Like, it ought to be doing that if you're doing a good job. And so that's what started happening to me, is I started to get referral opportunities and just different opportunities that I'd never really expected. And so I took on a couple of clients and maintained them for a few years, and then or not a few years, for a few months. And there was some churn, and but I was always able to make more money doing that than I could if I had tried to go for a raise at my new job or whatever. I wasn't going to be able to get the kind of numbers that I needed to make the bills work. So I did that for a couple of years as a side hustle, and it was up and down, but it always sort of met the needs. And I didn't really seriously think about trying to build it into a full-time thing until the spring of 2015. It was at that point that I'd wrapped up some things at work. Personally, my wife and I were looking at our numbers and our long-term financial goals, and we just wanted to do better than we were. And here I had this thing where, I was making, like $20 an hour on a salary at this job, which I know was not that great, right? And so I think it was a little more than that. I don't remember the exact number, but it was definitely less than $25 an hour on salary, which comes with health care and retirement funds. And so that's not a flat number, but I was charging $50 plus an hour over as a freelancer. And so, we started to run the numbers, and we thought that there was an opportunity for us to do better financially if I could build the freelance business into a real thing, like a full-time thing. The trick is making the transition, right? It's like, how do you go? It's not like getting a new job. If you quit a job on Friday and you start your new job on Monday, like, your paychecks just flow continuously. If you quit your job on Friday and you move into freelancing, part of the art and science of freelancing is getting all those clients. So I had to build up basically a full-time client list while working my day job. So I worked an insane number of hours during the summer of 2015. I would go from the office basically straight to a coffee shop to do work for the night. And I I just worked 2 jobs to build up that client list. And when it got to be, where it could support a full-time income, that's when I quit. And so my last day ended up being September 25th, 2015. So the other thing I had to do, by the way, during that time was to raise my prices because $50 an hour, it may sound like a lot to you, but when you have 2 kids and a wife who is mostly a stay-at-home mom, you just need the numbers to be better. And so I was able to do that. I was able to raise my prices. I was at $75 an hour hourly before I quit, and I charged significantly more than that now. But I had to do that, and I had to get new clients who would pay me those new rates, and it was a lot of work. And so that's why for me, I like to talk about this thing called the long game. Freelancing, if you are getting into the world of freelancing, you can build a client list really rapidly, but you have to navigate those periods of time where you're going through transition. And for me, it just meant 2 months of just working my ass off. Like that was just the way it was. And that might be the case for you too. I don't know what your situation is. I don't know what your needs are, but I do know that if somebody like me can do it, somebody with like 3 people depending on him, 2 small kids at home, like a wife, family, house, the whole thing. If I can pull it off, like, especially those of you who maybe don't have people depending on you, if you're not married, if you don't have kids, like if you're a younger person and you're thinking about this, like now is the time. I'm telling you, now is the time to just jump into it and see if you can figure out how to make it work. What I will tell you though is that there are these stories that are flowing around the internet, right? Where people are like, you can become a 6-figure copywriter within 30 days. And let me show you how. And there are stories of people who do become 6-figure copywriters within 30 days as a result of those programs, right? That's where the case studies come from. Those are real. They're not fake. And nobody can take away those stories from those people who have done that. What is also true, and what I need you to know, is that that's not the experience of most people. Most people have to work really hard at it, and it's way more work than they thought. And a lot of people give up. And I think a lot of people give up because there's this gap between their expectation and what actually ends up being reality. They expect to become a 6-figure freelancer within a month. And what happens is they make $50,000 in a year. And they're disappointed by that. And even though maybe that's enough to pay your bills, maybe that's enough to pay down some debt. Maybe that's enough to give you the kind of flexibility to spend more time with your kids, or whatever it is. Like I'm recording this podcast from my kitchen table, literally. And as much as I work, and as hard as it is, and as much as I wish I had more free time, I can take my kid to preschool if I want to. Like there's some perks that I've gained because I'm able to work for myself, right? I can set my own hours, which is not always a perk, right? Sometimes that means I'm up in the middle of the night. Sometimes I'm up at 1:00 in the morning fixing a client problem. That's just the nature of the business. The trade-off for that is that I get to work on my back porch if I want to, if it's nice outside. I'm wearing shorts and sandals. If I want to later, I'm going to go to Starbucks and I'm going to work from there. I don't have to go to corporate meetings. I don't have a commute. There's all these different trade-offs. And for me, those things have all been worth it, right? And maybe that means for you, they're not worth it. I don't know. But I want you to know that I'm somebody who stuck with it. And it wasn't my skill. It wasn't my ability. It wasn't anything other than the fact that I just decided that no matter what happened, I was going to keep going, right? And it's the keep goingness that will make you successful, not having this expectation that you're going to, instantly become successful. And actually, I think that the greatest thing that you can learn from starting your own business, whether it's a freelancing business or a product business or anything, is this thing that's sometimes called grit by the psychologists, right? It's this thing that gives you resilience even when things don't go the way you want, even when a client fires you, even when you get dropped by a client that you were counting on, even when you don't get paid for an invoice that you were counting on. Those things happen, right? And it's how you respond to them that will determine your long-term success. So that's the story I wanted to tell you today. I like to think about things in terms of a 5-year plan. So I'm 4 years into my freelancing plan, and I'm doing pretty well. Like if I was only doing freelancing, if that was the only thing I was doing, I would be just fine. And that could sustain me forever. I happen to also have the Content Marketing Lounge and a training business and like a dozen other things going all at once. So that's my own doing, right? And so even in that world, I started the Content Marketing Lounge in August of 2013. Excuse me, August of 2015, just before I quit my day job. And so I'm only 2 years into that, right? I've got an audience of 2,600 people. I haven't really done a ton of work to promote it. It's kind of just been a small thing I've done on the side a little bit at a time. But it's one of the most valuable assets I have, right? And so that to me is worth it. And I'm on year 2, right? Where am I going to be on year 5? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to finding out. My hope is that by year 5, it will be, an audience from which I can generate a full-time income from that. And be able to do a little less freelancing and have that lifestyle business that people talk about. But look, I mean, I'm fully committed to doing 7 years of work to make all that happen. Are you? That's my question for you. It's like, are you fully committed to doing what it takes to putting in the time and effort to make things happen, even if they take longer than you think, and even if they don't go the way that you hear in all the wonderful case studies and sales letters. I think that's all I have for you today. As a personal note, I've been thinking forever and saying forever that I was going to do a podcast. And this being the 2-year anniversary of me quitting my day job, I thought, well, I may as well just sit down and record a podcast. What I like to tell people, and this is me taking my own advice right here, is that if you've got something and you really feel like it's something that you should do or want to do or try, don't sit around waiting for people to, there's so many people that I meet that are they're waiting for somebody to come along and give them the money to do the thing, right? And, just go in your garage and make the crappy version of it, right? If I'm somebody who has money and I'm going to invest in somebody, I'm not going to throw money at somebody who's just, has big dreams and nothing to show for it. I'm going to invest in the person who is trying to make it work with the resources that he has. So, I've got a mic plugged into my MacBook here, and I'm sitting at my kitchen table trying to record this quickly before my kids get home, so that you guys don't have to hear about it or hear them in the background. So, this is maybe not the best podcast that is ever going to be published. I think in 2 years, when I continue to do podcasts, I'll come back and I'll listen to this one, and I'll be just cringing at the audio quality and my own personal speech and all these kinds of things. But so what, right? So what? I started it, and I'm going to keep with it. And that's how content marketing works. You dramatically overestimate what you can get done in a day. And I promise you dramatically underestimate what you can get done in a year or even 5 years or 10. So have the right perspective, play the long game. That's where success is found for the vast majority of people. Okay, don't get discouraged by all these people who tell you all these stories. Many of them true, some of them maybe not as true. Maybe some of them are leaving out some of the harder details. It's hard to know for sure on some of those sales letters, but what I'm telling you today is my experience, and I think that's the experience most people have had along the way. So, as with all of the content that I put out, I want this to be a discussion, not an ending point, but a starting point. That's what the Content Marketing Lounge is for. So, share your thoughts. I'd love to hear. Like, what kind of time frame do you think about? Are you thinking about your business on a 2-year plan, on a 5-year plan, on a 10-year plan? Like, what is it that you use to keep yourself sane? I'd love to hear whatever tips you have on this topic, and we'll talk about it. Okay. All right. Take care, my friends. Be excellent to each other, and I will talk to you again soon.